to have you here for our talk today. Simpler is deeper, which sounds like exactly where we need to go. So I'll stop sharing and you can bring up your slides if you like, and we'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Good morning, and I'm going to have to reset these things. So, Marilyn, if you tell me how we have it right. You forgot one description of me. I'm a little bit of a burr in people's saddles, too.
And we like that best.
Great. Okay, going to slideshow from the beginning. Are you seeing just the blank slide? Thanks for inviting me back. Terrific. Well, woo, inviting me back in more than one way, right? So let's get romping. As always, I want to remind you to relax at the best of your ability. Get your phone out in case you want to take pictures. I will also make the slides available to Cheryl so they can be shared. And my email address is alberthasselbeck@gmail.com. My website is paulhasselbeck.com, where you can see my calendar, and that's where I post the absolute word. And my podcast with Reverend Drs. Bill and Cher Holden, metaphysicalrom2.com. So, simpler is deeper. Simpler is deeper. When I heard you all were going to go deep, I figured it was really important to talk about a kind of way of understanding metaphysics that makes it simpler, but maybe not easier to do, but at least if it's simpler, you can do it. So part of the problem with metaphysics is that there's all this terminology. Any subject area has its own terminology, and that terminology almost becomes like a secret signal between people who know the terminology. And to give you some idea of what happens in Unity, I have found 19 synonyms for God in the published writings, and I'm still counting. Here are ones you might be familiar with: Christ, Jehovah, Spirit, Lord, Father, I am. But these may not be so obvious: principle, law, divine idea, substance, supply, all good. So that takes care of God. But wait, there's more. I have found 30 versions of the law of mind action, different ways in which Charles named the law, and I'm still counting. So here's a few: law of mind activity, law of thought affinity, law of sequence, law of giving and receiving, law of reaping and sowing. I've actually gotten to a point where law of mind action is probably the most important law. And I see I have a typo on that slide. So a little history. New thought is founded on or based on science. I have this image in my mind that the people who started New Thought in general were disgruntled with the God of their understanding, the one that they were taught in their churches. And so they decided that they would re-image God in a way. And science in the mid-1850s going forward was coming on strong as a general important subject area. And so New Thought is founded on science. And some of the names: Christian Science, Divine Science, and Religious Science, all have science in their names. Now, religious science became centers for spiritual living. And Unity doesn't fit the pattern, but many of you probably don't know that Unity got sued really early on by Christian Science for using the name Christian Science for one of their publications. And so it's important we remember science in a way, or how science is perceived and works, or how we work it, is fundamental to New Thought and Unity. And so whether you're like me and believe God is principle and law, or you believe there's a God, a deity, an entity, a universe that created principles and laws, to work metaphysics, what we need to know is that there is principle and law. And that principle is made up of principles, and that law is made up of laws. And so I want to introduce you a quote from this book, Infinite Potential, by Lothar Schaefer. It's a really good read, and I recommend it highly. Because Lothar is, I guess you would call him a quantum chemist, whatever that is. So he says in this book, the visible world is shot through with invisible images that define future possibilities. All visible things and phenomena need an underlying image, or they couldn't have appeared in the visible world. And he goes on to say, since this rule applies to the processes of the physical world, as well as to the processes of our mind, it reveals an unexpected congruence of the physical and the mental that is typical for the new physics. Now look, Myrtle and Charles were way ahead of Lothar Schaefer in some ways. So you'll find in the revealing word where Charles says, all material things represent spiritual realities. And he said, whatever you see in the external, you may be assured has its parallel in mind. So what are we talking about here? So we can think of there being two basic realms, the unchangeable realm and the changeable realm. And the unchangeable realm is made up of constants and laws. Now we're talking about in science. In mind, we would say principles and laws. And the changeable has two subsets. There's changeable physical stuff and changeable non-physical stuff. So the changeable physical and non-physical is made up of the physical universe. Every whit of the physical universe we put into this category. The other category, the changing non-physical, we could talk about as being consciousness or little m mind. So this changing physical universe, let's look at it through a kind of scientific eye. So physicality, well, we're human beings. There you see the Vitruvian Man that Leonardo da Vinci made. So we human beings exist. Oh, I forgot, I added this. So that's what it would look like at the guy in a hoodie. So we exist on the big blue marble on the planet Earth, which is changing. The planet Earth exists in the solar system, which is always changing. Our solar system exists in the Milky Way galaxy, which is always changing. And our galaxy is one of billions, with a B, galaxies. All those little yellow dots of light you see in the upper left corner, those are not stars. Those are galaxies. And every galaxy contains billions of stars. And the billions of stars contain billions of planets. Maybe I should be talking trillions or zillions at this point. So that's the basic layout of the physical universe. And so that there is this physical universe is self-evident, and we directly know it. No one has to tell us. But when we think about the physical universe, for all practical purposes, it's infinite, based on there now being evidence that there's big bangs before the current Big Bang we're living in. It's physicality probably has always been, it's always changing, it's expanding, growing, and evolving. Now, what it's expanding into just baffles my mind. At this whole physical universe, what science is all about is discovering these laws and constants that don't change, that underwrite Lothar called them images. These are the things that scientists look for. And so here's a few laws of nature: electromagnetism, mathematics, quantum mechanics, gravity, chemistry. And let's be clear, the laws of chemistry don't apply to the laws of electromagnetism. The laws of electromagnetism do not apply to quantum mechanics. These laws of nature that scientists are discerning apply to discrete areas of science. And then some of the constants are speed of light, pi, Bohr's constant, and Planck's constant, and a whole lot more. So look, why is this important? And why is it important to metaphysics? Well, science got going because humankind wanted to understand how things worked. And when they discover constants and laws, then they can use them, then we can use them consciously. And right now we have an event going on, which is mind-boggling. The James Webb Space Telescope, which was launched on Christmas Day, is on its way to a point 1 million miles from the Earth. You might ask why. Well, that 1 million miles from the Earth is based on these points in space that are calculated by our scientists based on utterly dependable laws and constants, or you could say laws and principles. That telescope is on its way to something called Lagrange 2 or L2. Lagrange points are positions in space where objects sent there tend to stay there. They put it way out there so they don't have to use much fuel to adjust where it is so it can stay there. And they put it out there with a huge tennis court size sun shield to get it really, really cold and where there wouldn't be any light position. Because this instrument is going to see way, 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 way back in time. Okay, so now we've been talking about the changeable physical. Now we're going to talk about the changeable non-physical, or consciousness, or mind, and show you some of the congruency. Okay, so consciousness, also known as mind, but we're not talking about the brain, because your physical brain, your physical body is part of physicality, and it's governed by its own laws and constants and laws and principles. So just briefly, what is consciousness? Well, at our individual level, it's awareness plus arousal plus a motivation. Awareness is our ability to perceive specific environmental stimuli in different domains, including visual, somatosensory, that's your body sensory, auditory, and interoceptive. Did you know you have receptors in your body? Yeah, and they're giving you information all the time. One of them is pain receptors. Excuse me. Arousal, the second part of consciousness, is the overall level of responsiveness to environmental stimuli. So we can be aware of things, but we must have a level of response or arousal to what we're aware of. So we're motivated to take action. Motivation is the drive to act upon internal or external stimuli that have entered conscious awareness. So that's what consciousness is, according to science. And so that you have consciousness, that you have awareness, arousal, and motivation is self-evident. Someone doesn't have to tell you it, and we directly know it. Now, someone names it like I just did, and you're going, oh yeah, I get it, I get it. And look at this. Consciousness is infinite. Scientists is saying it's always been. In fact, consciousness is now being understood as fundamental. It cannot be reduced. It's always changing. Isn't your mind always changing? It's expanding, growing, evolving. So you're seeing the congruence now between mind or consciousness and physicality. And so consciousness has its laws and constants. And guess what? The laws and constants is the subject matter of metaphysics. And so if we can know those laws and constants, we can consciously use them in better and better ways. And so here's some laws of mind: cause and effect, law of mind action, law of divine order, law of expression, and many, many more. And I already told you there's at least 30 synonyms for the law of mind action. And constants would be the 12 powers, benevolence, generosity, completeness, and many more. I have a whole book on it. Use the truth you know, the principles and premises of unity. And there's about 30, I think, principles that I have discerned in the writings. And I'm in the process of discerning some today that weren't found in the writings. In fact, generosity is one of them. Receptivity, I think, is another one. So consciousness is underwritten. It needs laws and principles or divine ideas in order to exist, because these laws and principles and divine ideas are part of that unchanging realm. And so we get this from Charles Fillmore in Prosperity. The law of supply is a divine law. This means that it is a law of mind and must work through mind. I don't know about you, but for years I thought divine law and spiritual law were something mysterious or mystical, hard to understand. But now you've learned something pretty simple. Spiritual law or divine laws are really laws of mind. And they only pertain to mind, your mind, my mind. And we can use them to use our minds more effectively. And this quote goes on to say something really interesting. God will not go to the grocery and bring food to your table. We got to stop thinking of God as a concierge. But when you continue to think about God as your real supply, everything in your mind begins to awaken and contact the divine substance. And as you mold it, as you mold substance, what's that? Substance really? As you mold the ideas, as you give them more shape and more form, make them more specific in your consciousness, ideas begin to come which will connect you with the visible manifestation. We get the ideas, we mold them, we make them specific, and then we use them to take action. Consciousness is awareness plus arousal plus motivation. When we get enough arousal, we get enough motivation to take action to manifest what we want. You first get the ideas in consciousness, direct from their divine source, the divinity you are, and then you begin to demonstrate the outer. And here's a clincher. It is an exact law, and it is scientific and unfailing. You see, the New Thought founders created a God that was utterly dependable, utterly unfailing. So we have the unchangeable, the changeable. The unchangeable is made up of constants and laws. The changeable is made of the physical realm and the non-physical realms that changes. And the green depends on the blue. Let's look at another way. The changing realm is made up of the changing physical universe, the changing non-physical consciousness, and all of that is underwritten by the unchanging realm, which we could say is principles, powers, divine ideas, and immutable laws of mind. And let's look. Physical universe is infinite. The non-physical consciousness is infinite, and the unchanging realm is infinite. Another amazing congruence. And so as a reminder, whatever you see in the external, you may be assured has its parallel in mind. All material things represent spiritual realities, but I want to update that from Fillmore, because it's not just material things, it's your thoughts and feelings too. All changeable things represent spiritual realities. What are those spiritual realities? Divine ideas or principles and laws. And look, we can only change things that are changeable. And there are changeable things we can't change, like maybe changing the weather, like maybe changing the position of the moon. So if there's something that's changeable and we can't change it, well, then what can we do? If we cannot change something, we can change ourselves. I'm going to say that again. If we cannot change something, we can change ourselves. Why? My body's changeable. My mind's changeable. How do we change? We use metaphysics. We use principles and laws. And let us not forget, you can only control the controllables. You can only control the controllables. And we do that using principle and law. So I hope you're seeing that by understanding the simple relationships that underpin metaphysics, it'll now be easier for you, and you may have more interest in discerning these principles and laws that then you can use consciously. Up till you and I become conscious of them, we're using them unconsciously and sometimes unskillfully. And so we want to use principle and law to the best of our own advantage and everyone's advantage, so we get a win-win outcome. Yes, simpler is deeper, and now you know the fundamentals underlying metaphysics. Thank you for listening.
When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray.
And so we take a deep breath. And another deep breath. It's always good to remember that we can use the calm and connect breathing to reestablish peace at the point of ourselves. And so as we focus on a simpler truth, let us remember that quote from Jesus, which is about seeking the truth that shall set us free. And that truth, in one way or the other, is the truth about ourselves. You are, I am, we are fundamentally divine, and fully human. Our divinity is unshakable, unchangeable, and utterly dependable. Our humanity is wondrously unique in wild and crazy ways sometimes. Our humanity is made up of our changing physical body and our changing mind. And so I invite you right now to lean into using your humanity, lean into your divinity, and claim the truth of the fullness of your divinity and the fullness of our humanity. And let us focus on that in the silence. Feel the fullness of your humanity, the full range of reactions and responses in your ever-changing humanity. And feel the fullness of your divinity, a field of infinite potential and infinite possibilities. It is you, it is I, it is us that take those infinite possibilities and shape them into specific things right here and now. In their non-physical minds and in our physical bodies and in the physical world around us. Remember that ultimately, you are only responsible for what you're aware of. Remember, you can only control the controllables. Let the rest of it go. And if you can't change it, change yourself. So repeat after me. I am fully divine and fully human. And now let's say it again together with more energy. I am fully divine and fully human. And once more with zeal. Let's say it zealiciously. I am fully divine and fully human. And friends, and so you are, and so I am, and so it is. Amen.